Marcus Bell returned home earlier than expected, only to find his mother, Evelyn, trembling on the couch, bruises hidden beneath her scarf, whispering over and over, "Am I a witch? Am I a bad mother?" The sight froze him, but when he checked the mansion's cameras, the truth cut deeper than anything he imagined. The woman responsible was his own wife, Clara. What began as a family betrayal quickly unraveled into something far darker. A trail of secrets and missing lives that had been haunting investigators for years. Before we go any further, kindly hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. The jet touched down in a light drizzle, the kind that hangs in the air and clings to suits. Marcus Bell stepped out of the car, loosened his tie, and let the cool night air rinse the stale conference rooms off his skin. The mansion lights were on, but the house felt paused. No music from the kitchen, no quiet clatter of dishes, just a hum of the AC and the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. He set his phone face down on the console table, adjusted a cuff link that didn't need fixing, and listened. A soft sound bled through the silence, broken breaths, held back, then leaking out again past the foyer. The living room sat like a museum, polished wood, framed accolades, fresh lies in a vase. His mother, Evelyn, was on the edge of the couch, hands folded too tight, shoulders hugging in. Her scarf had slipped sideways. The bruise beneath it wasn't loud, but it didn't whisper either. Purple, then green at the edges, like a storm that had already passed, but still owned the sky. Marcus's chest went hot, then empty. He took a step slow. Another. He didn't touch her yet. He read the room first, the way he reads Marcus. Where's the pressure? Where's the exit? Where's the truth hiding? From the pantry doorway. Two staff whispered behind the jamb, thinking they were invisible. Thought Madame was better.
Shh. You know who's been keeping her company when he's out? The lilies threw a thick sweetness into the air. It mixed wrong with the antiseptic hint of ointment.
His mother blinked up at him. 1, 2, 3 blinks, like she had to load his face into focus. Her lips trembled, then steadied, and the words came not as a statement, but as a plea that had worn grooves in her mind. Am I a witch? Am I a bad mother? The clock ticked. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe clicked as it cooled. Marcus crouched, fingers hovering an inch from her wrist before settling there, gentle, like setting a glass down on a sleeping table. Her pulse was quick. His jaw flexed. He swallowed the first 10 things he wanted to say and chose one he could control. Breathe. He sat beside her, angle turned, shoulder not quite touching. The scarf's knot was messy. He straightened it. Micro movements tidy the knot, smooth. The crease, hide the storm. His eyes lifted to the corner of the ceiling where a tiny red but WK'd to itself. Quiet camera always watching. In the hallway, a floorboard sighed. Staff retreated. The house fell still again as if bracing for a confession. Marcus inhaled through his nose, slow, steady. The room tasted of lilies and fear. He didn't argue, didn't rush. He mapped a moment. The bruise's shape, the timid way she turned her chin, the way she kept checking the doorway like it might bite. A pattern lives in those tiny checks. Patterns tell stories. Stories leave trails. He stood, adjusted his sleeve, and let his voice be low. Even not a question yet, not an accusation, just gravity. He glanced once more at that blinking red eye in the ceiling, then toward the hall that led to his private office, the server room, the footage, the ledger of truth. No fireworks, no sudden anything, just direction. He kissed his mother's hair, straightened, and walked toward the cameras. The office smell. Faintly of cedar and ink. Marcus shut the heavy door with a soft click, not a slam. Control first, rage later. He slid into the leather chair, tapped the keyboard, and the wall of monitors blinked alive. Rows of quiet eyes, each camera tucked into a corner of the mansion, fed their memory onto his screen. He exhaled through his teeth, steadying his hands as he rewound the footage. A faint squeak of fabric, a figure crossing the living room. His wife, Clara, perfect hair tied back, silk blouse tucked into tailor pants, moving with the ease of someone who felt untouchable. Marcus leaned forward. His mother appeared, sitting down a tray of tea, posture polite, small smile, always trying to keep peace. Clara's face hardened, lips moving fast, the soundless insult scrolling across her mouth. Then the motion sharp, sudden, a hand raised to shove a slap. Evelyn staggered back against the couch, clutching her scarf. The billionaire's knuckles pressed into the desk until the wood groaned. Hi. Chest burned with a pressure that had nothing to do with money or power. This was blood. This was his mother. Behind the office door, faint voices stirred. The staff again, not knowing he could hear through the vent. She shouldn't have to go through this. But the missus, she's dangerous. People disappear around her. Don't get involved. Marcus caught that last line. His head turned slightly as if he could see through the wall. Disappear. The word echoed, not casual gossip. Fear lived in fear. He rewound again. Watch slower. Every micro-movement, Clara's sneer, the flick of her wrist, the calculated step forward. It wasn't a one-off, it was a performance, a routine. When Marcus finally stood, his body moved with quiet deliberation. He adjusted his cufflink again, a tick now, a way to stop his hands from curling into fists. He left the office, footsteps measured, each strike of his shoes against marble ringing like a warning bell. Clara was at the dining table, scrolling through her PH. One wine glass tilted casually. She didn't even flinch when he entered. In fact, she smirked, lifting her eyes just enough to acknowledge him. "You're home early," she said. Tom clipped careless. "I hope the trip wasn't a waste." He didn't answer. Not yet. He studied her, jawline sharp under the chandelier light, nails tapping the glass stem, eyes darting with an arrogance that had always been dressed as confidence. For a moment he thought of their first dinner, the laughter she wore like jewelry, the charm that had slipped so easily into his world. Now he saw the edges, too polished, too rehearsed. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Why is my mother crying?" Clara tilted her head, almost amused. "Because she's dramatic. She plays the victim. You know how old women get." The sentence slid out too smoothly. Marcus's stomach knotted. She wasn't denying, wasn't even hiding. Her smirk widened. She deserves discipline. Someone had to remind her she's not the queen here. The words clange. D like metal against his skull. He didn't shout. He didn't lunge. He only nodded once as though filing a transaction in his mind. He turned his back and walked out, not retreat. Calculation in the reflection of the hallway mirror. Clara's smirk followed him, but it wavered just slightly as if she sensed something shifting. By the time Marcus reached the stairwell, he already knew Act 2 of the story was over. He had gathered the evidence, heard the gossip, measured her pride. Next came the investigation. The truth deeper than bruises and footage waiting to be unearthed. And this time he wouldn't be watching quietly from a monitor. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office, the glow of monitors flickering across his face, replaying the same clip until the silence felt louder than sound. His hand tapped the desk rhythmically, a steady beat of patience holding back a flood of rage. At dawn he made the call. Not to friends, not to lawyers, straight to the detectives who had Unc. He hinted during a gala that Clara's name wasn't as clean as her smile. He didn't explain much, just 3 words that carried weight. "I have footage." Within hours, 2 plainclothes officers arrived, their shoes squeaking against marble floors that weren't theirs to tread. They spoke in low tones, respectful but sharp, like men who already suspected what they were about to see. Marcus showed them the video, hands behind his back, jaw tight. One officer's brow furrowed, the other exhaled, almost relieved. "We've been watching her for years," one murmured. "Different names, different cities, 3 marriages, always the same pattern." The words peeled Marcus open. He leaned against the edge of his desk, processing each syllable. The officer continued. "Each time she isolates the mother or father. Some cases of abuse. Some disappearances that whisper from the staff the night before now carried a coffin's weight." Marcus closed his eyes. Soft flashes of Clara dinners. Log. Hing too brightly, brushing off questions about her past with vague answers and quick subject changes. It all threaded together, a pattern he should have noticed sooner. When they stepped out to make calls, Marcus wandered through his own house. Staff whispered again, not realizing how sound carries through marble. "He'll leave her, right? He's too smart not to. But rich men, they get blinded, not Marcus. He's not like the others." Their faith in him was quiet, hesitant, but real. He carried it like armor. By evening, Claire returned from spa appointment, robe tied carelessly, phone glued to her ear. She found Marcus waiting in the hall, silent, officers behind him. Her smirk faltered for the first time. cracking like a glass dropped too softly to shatter. The officers approached. Claire's eyes darted, calculating escape routes, but Marcus stood firm, his frame blocking the stairway, his silence louder than any curse. When they read her rights, she laughed shrill, unhinged. But the log. H broke off into a cough when the cuffs clicked. The investigation spread fast. Papers dug into her past. 3 different last names, 3 vanished elderly in-laws, restraining orders that got buried under settlements. She had built her life on reinvention, always moving before the truth could pin her down. Marcus sat through every briefing, every late-night phone call with detectives. He didn't flinch when they showed him case files with faces of missing elders. He didn't speak when they told her Miss Tip had finally tied threads together. He only thought of his mother, sitting in her room with a blanket tucked to her chin, whispering to herself that she wasn't cursed, that she wasn't a witch. For the first time, justice was moving. Not fast, not loud, steady, like Marcus himself. And as Clara's mugshot spread through headlines, the house began to breathe again. Staff walked easier. The lies in the vase smelled like flowers again. Not cover for antiseptic, but Marcus knew this wasn't just about headlines. This was about a mother who had finally been believed, and a son who had chosen to act when silence would have been easier. The mansion felt different in the weeks after Clara's arrest. No footsteps pacing late at night. No sharp perfume clinging to the curtains. No tense silence hanging between rooms. For the first time in years, the house belonged to Evelyn again. Marcus found her in the garden most mornings, wrapped in a shawl, sipping tea with both hands around the cup. She looked smaller somehow, but lighter too, like a weight had been unhooked from her chest. Still, sometimes he'd catch her murmuring the old question to herself, "Am I a witch? Am I a bad mother?" As though the words were bruises that healed slower than the skin. He always answered the same, kneeling beside her chair, steady voice cutting through the doubt. "No, Mama, you are my foundation. You raised me into who I am. That's not weakness, it's power." In town, the gossip had shifted. At sea, afes and barber shops, people whispered, "Did you hear? That billionaire's wife was living double lives." Strange how the mother always knew something was wrong. Folks should have listened. Say what you want about Marcus, but he protected his own. That's respect. Marcus overheard some of it when he moved quietly through public places. He didn't correct anyone. He let the chatter be, let it wash over him like background noise. All that mattered was his mother's recovery and making sure she never doubted herself again. The investigation pressed forward. Detectives tied Clara to 3 different aliases, 3 different marriages, 3 trails of abuse for 2 missing in-laws. She was the prime suspect. Headlines called her chameleon widow. Courts called her dangerous. Justice wasn't instant, but it was sure. Each hearing brought more evidence, more voices from the past. And through it all, Marcus sat behind his mother, a steady presence. Not the billionaire in tailored suits, not the business magnate making deals, just a son. Defending the woman who once held his hand through every storm. By the time Clara was convicted, Evelyn's bruises had faded. What didn't fade was Marcus's resolve. He changed his schedule, trimming back trips, canceling long weeks abroad. Money can wait, he told his board. Family can't. In the end, the mansion stood taller, not because of wealth, but because truth had been aired, justice served, and love restored. And the outro carried the weight of the story, like a closing note. Sometimes the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers, but from those we let closest. Marcus came home to heartbreak, but chose action over silence. In doing so, he gave his mother back her peace and proved that real power isn't money, it's protection. Stories like Marcus's remind us that real power isn't in wealth, it's in standing up for those we love. If this story moved you, don't leave just yet. Hit subscribe, share it with a friend, and stick around. We've got more. Read powerful stories that will keep you thinking long after the screen goes dark.